And then I guess I'm interested just in the approach because you've called it Storge. That's kind of the hook that you've hung it on. You're at the Center for Hebraic Thought. You think of this as Hebraic thought, and yet you chose the Greek term rather
Yes.
than the Hebrew term. So why the Greek term?
Excellent. All right, let's go there. So, word studies, and you and I have, joked about how just the limits of a word study. Let's put it that way. And what is that game that you can play that you're allowed to say any word but the word itself, and you're trying to
get no.
No.
It's I don't know. I know what you're talking about.
It's catchphrase.
Oh,
And,
that's
and the reason this is
You've
fun.
actually done this to me before.
I've done this to you before.
Should have done.
The reason this is a fun question is because I'm literally playing the game catchphrase while I'm trying to get you to tell me about the game catchphrase. But it is to say that all the time we do this where we can talk about a thing without ever using that word. And so in some sense, what we're doing is we're going back into the Hebrew Bible is we're looking for them talking about Storge without ever using that word. Now, I have done a very cursory word study on Storge. Storge, the word itself, never appears in the old, the Greek translation of the Old Testament or the New Testament. It does appear in the Second Temple literature. It's in Sirach and the Greek of Sirach and Third and Fourth Maccabees. So you're going deep to get there.
That's a rather odd cluster, even
It
in
is
literature. Yeah,
it is. I suspect, and again, I've not done this research, and it would be fascinating to learn. So if there's anybody out there who has done this, I think the dates of when those books are written is instructive. So I'm curious how much even in the Greek there was the use of that term before like 150 BC. So that's an intuition. Again, I don't know that. But astorgos, so the lack or opposite of storge, that is in the New Testament. Paul uses it twice in Romans 1:31 and 2 Timothy 3 something.
wow.
Right? And it's in his list of just the abominations
Right.
of the non-Christians. Okay.
Wait, is this generally translated hating one's family or?
Okay, so I had to do a little bit of research on that because the ESV translates this very, very poorly. The HCSB actually gets this a little better, and the ESV translates it as
Despising one's family or something like that?
no. I don't even think they bring family into it.
Oh,
Specifically, the word astorgos.
okay.
But the HCSB at least translates it unloving.
Okay. Not insolent. That's not one of the words. Okay, unloving.
But yeah, HCSB gives it unloving. And so it's this idea of, and I think if you were to look it up in the concordance or whatever, it would tell you it's a lack of natural love is the way that they would phrase it. So these people are so wicked that even that thing that is most natural to us, they don't even do that.
The
right?
love of mother and father or something.
Yeah. But what's fascinating about those two particular lists is that Paul is framing these things that the ultimately wicked people do as a complete and total violation of the Ten Commandments.
Right.
And so there is some sense in which the violation of the Ten Commandments puts you in a place where you are violating storge love.
Right.
So then let's think about this. Which of those 10 commandments might display storge love without ever using that word?
I'm gonna guess number 5.
Number 5 is like
the
in your
Protestant
face.
count, at least, yeah.
Yeah. But honor your father and mother, right? And what's interesting is it's not just this like do this, don't do this, do this, don't do this. There's appendages on some of these, right? And if memory serves, the fifth commandment, honor your father and mother, is tied to your long life in the land.
Right. Let me go with you live long in the land of the living. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So there's some sense in which the storge love empowers your continued economic prosperity, and sure enough, we see that the land ownership system, which is probably better referred to as a land stewardship system, is kinship based.
Yep.
Okay, so that kind of intimately ties these things together. But I would argue that there's several other of the Ten Commandments that have storge either explicit or baked in, like in those like trails.
Adultery.
That's right. We tend to think of that merely as misordered arrows.
Right.
Which is true, but there's a
Eros
palpable...
in the sense of erotic love for somebody other than your spouse or somebody else's spouse. Yeah.
Thank you for
not all of you for those of you who hadn't read the Four Loves recently.
Yes, correct. And so, right, adultery destroys families, and so at risk is this binding principle of social structures of human nature. When you commit adultery, you are destroying your family, right? And so that's in there as well. But then also, like I said, it's baked into some of these other of the Ten Commandments. And I think the one that I've been thinking about most powerfully recently is the Second Commandment, where this right worship, right, doing worship rightly, has a negative effect, right? If you get it wrong, to the third or fourth generation, and if you get it right, to the 1,000th generation. And so there's this beautiful picture that God gives baked into the Second Commandment of legacy that is just rich in storge there. And we could talk, several of the others do that as well, like that different aspects of storge is kind of baked into it.
Seems to me too that the opposite of the fifth commandment, honor your mother and father, is also given in very vivid description in the one who curses their parents is to be put to death, right? To be brought before the elder by their parents and put to death. And it specifically says if he will not listen, right? So he curses and is incorrigible towards their parent. It's it's in that kind of same way that it just, like, what's one thing you can absolutely do to tear your family apart? Like, hate your parents and don't listen to them and be incorrigible like that. That will do the damage as well. So, yeah, I can think of lots of areas, and even a lot of neighbor love in the Hebrew Bible is ultimately going to be connected to, like, neighbors are going to be kin often, right? Mm-hmm. So it's on the liminal boundary there of any neighbor language as well.